Welcome to EPG Pathshala. This is your module on The Sound and the Fury, a novel written by William Faulkner. I am Shormila Mujumdar, Associate Professor, Department of English, University of Kalyani, West Bengal. William Faulkner is probably the most important writer from the American South. He is one of the most popular literary figures in American literature. He comes from the American South and the best known chronicler of life in the South. He is sometimes called the American Shakespeare. He created a fictional setting called Yoknapatawpha County, which is the backdrop of most of his writings. William Faulkner was mainly a poet novelist who has won Pulitzer Prize twice and 2 National Book Awards as well. He won Nobel Prize for Literature in 1949. His most celebrated novels are The Sound and the Fury, As I Lay Dying, and Light in August. All contemplate the history and cultural ethos of the American South. He is primarily known for writing short stories and novels, but he extends his art of writing in other genres like play, poetry, essays, and screenplays. Lawrence Thompson, in his book William Faulkner, An Introduction and Interpretation, writes that Faulkner's literary career from 1926 to 1962 produced 50 poems, 90 short stories, 17 novels, and a 3-act drama in which his literary genius found expression. Childhood Memories and the tales heard from his African American servants proved to be an infinite source of his creations. His works also encompassed post-war anguish, depression, ennui, along with the predatory injustices and inhumanities of Reconstruction era. We have to go back to American history a little bit. If you remember, the American Civil War was fought between the Union Army and the Confederate Army. The Union Army representing the northern states of the United States of America, and Confederate Army representing the southern slave-owning states of America. And the issue central to this Civil War was abolition of slavery, which was rampant in the South. Now, what happened, after the abolitionists, the Union Army won the battle, slavery was abolished, as a result of which South suffered not only huge loss of property but also a way of life which rendered many Southern families absolutely devastated. And William Faulkner himself comes from such a family, and he chronicled in most of his works, his short stories and novels, the predicament of these landowning South families who lost their holdings after the Civil War. His most celebrated novels, such as The Sound and the Fury, 1929, As I Lay Dying, 1930, Light in August, 1932, and Absalom, 1936, deserve to be mentioned here. Faulkner was also a prolific writer of short stories like A Rose for Emily, Red Leaves, That Evening Sun, and Dry September, etc. According to Kurt Gellner, the driving forces of Faulknerian fiction are linguistic, generic, social, economic, political, cultural, moral. Richard C. Moreland asserts that Faulkner's writing unsettles prevailing assumptions about time, space, language, loss, the self, the family, gender, culture, and history. A recent review article by John E. Bassett, William Faulkner, an annotated bibliography of criticism since 1988, according to Laurie Watkins Fulton, seems to point out the overall trend of Faulknerian criticism, which encompasses such broad areas as race, class, gender, realism, modernism, postmodernism, feminism, post-structuralism, rhetorical and ideological theories, and cultural studies. Now, you see, Faulkner was a great experimenter, and in his novels he has experimented with the form of the novel, and he is probably the first American novelist. Well, if we consider Henry James is definitely a precursor to it. He used the stream of consciousness technique in his novels, which was being used by his contemporary British modernist novel writers as well. He experimented with the vocabulary and also structures of these sentences. You know, most of his sentences are complicated and far too long, posing a challenge to the reader, and it sometimes really becomes difficult. And he also broke down the idea of chronological time. His narratives moved back and forth in time, and sometimes these created confusion, and all his novels require very patient and concentrated reading to make any sense of these. Malcolm Cowley, in his introduction in The Portable Faulkner, has claimed that the pattern of his fiction is based on stories heard in his childhood, but he transformed the material by adding emotions, passions, thoughts, feelings, ideologies, and conceptions. Consequently, his characters look like real human beings. The aged characters represent the Old South, while the young ones are shown affected by the loss of moral values in post-war world and increasing commercialization. He also opined that in second reading, a reader realized that his many characters and incidents have a double meaning and serve as symbols. His novels possess the quality of being lived, absorbed, remembered, rather than merely observed. Irving Howe's book, William Faulkner, A Critical Study, presents the thematic analysis in two parts titled William Faulkner, His World and His Work, and An Achievement Considered. Regarding the immortality of characters, he says that no novelist since Henry James has created such living characters who break the boundaries of novels and live in the memories of readers forever. The writer also praises Faulkner's dramatic conflict, persuasive characterization, fluidity of narrative, and the inner logic of the work. Now we come to the particular novel which is there in your syllabus. It is The Sound and the Fury, which was written in 1929. It's a novel which did not attract much attention immediately after it was published. This is the novel in which Faulkner used the stream of consciousness technique, something you have been told over and over again in the previous modules, that this is a technique which was kind of initiated by William James, the elder brother of the novelist Henry James, in a book called The Principles of Psychology. And this is a technique which was adopted by modernist British writers such as James Joyce and Virginia Woolf, Dorothy Richardson, etc. The Sound and the Fury is a novel written by the American author William Faulkner. The Sound and the Fury was published in the year 1929, and it is one of his best novels. The author adopts different kinds of narrative styles, including the technique popularly known as stream of consciousness, coined by William James in 1890 in his The Principles of Psychology. The title of the novel as you are probably aware, is taken from Shakespeare's Macbeth. All these lines are very famous, and it is the famous soliloquy of the protagonist, which occurs in the fifth scene of the fifth act of the play. It reads like this: tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time, and all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, out, brief candle. Life is but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. It's a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Now you see, the title Sound and Fury, when Faulkner chose the title Sound and Fury, probably he remembered the last two words of this soliloquy, that it signifies nothing, which means it signifies apparently nothing and may a lot of things which generally evade the attention of the general reader, and in general people in life they lose sight of a lot of things which are there just beneath the surface. The first three chapters of the novel consist of the intertwined thoughts and memories of the three Compson brothers. Now you know, Sound and the Fury is a novel about a family called the Compsons, who were southern aristocrats who lost their property after the Civil War, and they lost a way of life and they were unable to find a new one for themselves. So in this process they were corrupted, they degenerated and kind of devastated and completely destroyed, because they could never negotiate their life and their livelihood with the new environments in which they found themselves. The first three chapters of the novel consist of the intertwined thoughts and memories of the three Compson brothers, recorded on three different days and year, namely 7th April 1928, 2nd June 1910, and 6th April 1928. The first part of the novel is narrated by Benjamin Benzi Compson, who is a 33-year-old man. His narrative voice is presented in the form of stream of consciousness technique. He is the youngest child in the family and mentally retarded. The second part of the novel is narrated by Quentin Compson, the eldest child of Jason and Caroline. This chapter deals with the events of the last day of Quentin's life as he is preparing to commit suicide. Like the first section, it is also described in stream of consciousness technique, but with more careful manner, not as disjointed as Benji's. It is constant switch between contemporary events and memories of Quentin Compson. Now, you see, as I was telling you, that Faulkner broke down the idea of chronological time, and in Quentin Compson's narrative you can find that he constantly switches between his memories and his present, and because all his life is coming before him in as if they are a series of cinematic shots, because he is preparing to quit his life. And you know, the first chapter, which is narrated by Benzi Compson, Benzi has sometimes been, it's important the dates are Easter. The 6th and 7th April, they are just the day before the Easter and the day of Easter. And you see, Easter is an occasion of resurrection. On Good Friday, Christ was crucified, and on Easter Monday, he was resurrected. So you see, Benzi Compson has assumed some signification as a Christ-like figure, and it's also important that he is 33 years old, exactly the age when Christ was crucified. The third section is narrated by Jason, the third child, who is the only character who stands beside her mother. Jason's narration takes place exactly one day before Benji's section, which is the first section of the novel on Good Friday. The fourth chapter of the novel falls on 8th April 1928, the day after Benji's narration and 2 days after Jason's. Faulkner himself narrates the fourth chapter in his own voice by focusing on Dilsey, the Compson family's devoted black housekeeper. So you see, the fourth chapter is the only first-person narrative. The Sound and the Fury is set in Jefferson, Mississippi, which is the backdrop of most of his novels and short stories. The novel deals with the story of Compson family, who are formerly aristocrats in southern regions, but currently they are struggling to continue their family reputation. As suggested or described in the novel, over the course of the 30 years, that family falls into financial problem and they lose their faith and hope in religion as well as their expectation with the city of Jefferson. During this struggling period, many of the characters of the family die tragically without getting any hope in real life. You see, the southern aristocracy believed in a sense of values and code of conduct which became obsolete after the Civil War, and their tragedy was they could never get out of their existence in a period which has been frozen by time, and they tried to resurrect their old world into a new situation which is impossible, which they fail to do, as a result of which they are destroyed. And this old world way of life expected men to be breadwinner, dependable, intelligent, and of course patriarchal, and women to be beautiful, obedient, good housekeepers, wives and mothers. The novel is classified into 4 distinct parts with an appendix to reveal the unintelligible part of text. The first part of the novel is narrated by Benjamin Benji Compson, who is a 33-year-old man. As Faulkner himself described it, Benji's part is a tale told by an idiot. One could point that Benji is the idiot referred to in this line. The title of the novel comes from Shakespeare's Macbeth, Act 5, Scene 5. In Macbeth's famous speech about the meaninglessness of life, he states that it is a tale told by an idiot full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. About the inclusion of Ben's chapter in the beginning of the novel Sound and Fury, the critic says that Ben's version not only gives fragmentary impressionistic outline of the story, but it also justifies the first meaning of the title, Tale Told by an Idiot, full of sound and fury. The novel opens with Benji's 33rd birthday. He is not able to help his family much because of his physical illness. The only characters who concern him are Caddy, his elder sister, and Dilsey, a Negro servant in the Compson family. The time period that has been spanned in this chapter is between 1898 and 1928. In this section, one can observe the 3 emotional attachments of Benji: fire, the golf course, and his sister Caddy. He has to experience the shocking incidents like divorce of Caddy because her child was not her husband's, and the selling his favorite field to a local golf club in order to provide Quentin's further education at Harvard. Other crucial incidents that took place in this chapter are Benji's change of name from Murray after his uncle in 1900 upon the discovery of his disability, and the divorce of Caddy, who is very dear to Benji. The second part of the novel is narrated by Quentin Compson. Quentin Compson is the eldest child of Jason and Caroline, and the day he commits suicide, then he describes the second part just before committing suicide. He is the most intelligent and disturbed children in the family. We can find in him best example of Faulkner's stream of consciousness narrative technique in the novel. This entire chapter is told from within Quentin's voice on the day that he commits suicide. He is so much tormented by the memories of Caddy's promiscuity and the desire of marrying another man to avoid the shame of a bastard child, completely shatters his faith in moral values. Through the portrayal of Quentin, Faulkner emphasizes the importance of time and memory in Quentin's world through the frequent appearance of clocks and watches. You see, clocks and watches are important symbols in the novel, and Faulkner's scheme of breaking down chronological time and accommodating the narrative in different chronological period is ably supported by his use of the symbols of clocks and watches. The third section is narrated by Jason, the third child, who is the only character who stands beside her mother. Jason's narration takes place exactly one day before Benji's section, which is the first section of the novel on Good Friday, the day Christ was crucified. Faulkner introduced the character of Jason from his first sentence. Once a bitch, always a bitch, what I say. He is very sadistic and bitter man who only thinks about money and single-minded person in the family. He became the guardian of the family after his father's death. In the beginning, Herbert Head had promised to give Jason a job at his bank, but rescinded that offer when he discovered Caddy because of a illegitimate affair with another man and divorced her. This abjuration left Jason no choice but to work at the farm supply store. He bitterly behaved with his sister Caddy and even did not stop himself in blackmailing her. So you see, there is one child who is psychologically retarded, the eldest one commits suicide, and the youngest one is burdened with the responsibility of running the family, but he is an embittered man, a frustrated man, and so you see the way the family is disintegrating, and this is the way most of the southern aristocratic families disintegrated. The fourth section of the novel is the shortest one, narrated by Faulkner himself. The most important character in this section is Dilsey, the Compson family's devoted black housekeeper. The Compson family undergoes a lot of problems and suffering. Dilsey is only character who can bring peace and order in the family in spite of so much sound and fury. This section deals with the panoramic view of two worlds of entire Compson family and Dilsey's world. So you see, here is a clear wedge driven between the world of the aristocrats in the south and the world that their African American servants inhabited. But in spite of this sharp wedge between these two worlds, Dilsey tries to bridge the gap. She tries to help the Compson family. She is really fond of them. She has been abused by them, but still she believes that it is her duty to serve her masters. So see how the vestige of the slave owning era continues even after the slaves have been freed and the family left its cotton plantation to come over to Yoknapatawpha country, the imaginary place which is actually Jefferson, Mississippi, and they also cannot come out of their world. So is Dilsey. She also doesn't come out of her world. She still believes that she has to look after the family. She is trying to make an order and peace in the chaos of family with her utmost efforts. In this context of the novel, Jason wakes in the morning and discovers that Miss Quentin has run away and stolen all his money that was stolen by him from her only. He cannot complain to the police because of his own problem. So he decided to follow her in other cities. The Sound and the Fury ends with the symbolic end of the Compson family's downfall, but also suggests at the possibility of resurrection or renewal. Significantly, this last chapter occurs on the eve of Easter Sunday, the day of Christ's resurrection, and thereby pass on a powerful symbol of salvation and hope. The appendix part is later included in the novel to be published in the name of The Portable Faulkner. Sometimes this appendix is regarded as the fifth part of the novel. In the appendix, the author represents the whole history lineage of Compson family and their fortune after the novel. The appendix closes with an accounting of the Negro family who worked with loyalty as servants of the Compson's family. The comment of Dilsey as "I need the beginning and now I see the ending" at the end of the novel suggests her presence since the beginning to end. In this context, Dilsey's presence can be felt everywhere in the novel. Dilsey's entry, the final in the appendix, consists of two words: "they endured." It suggests her conviction and faith in Southern values. So now we come to the important characters of the novel. The first is Jason Compson III, or Mr. Compson. He is the father and head of the Compson family. By profession, he is a lawyer who attended the University of the South. He is an intellectual and well-educated person. He dies because of his alcoholism in 1912. He is very cynical and detached man who believes that life is essentially without meaning, and that is why he can do little to his family's tragic downfall. So, in a way, Jason Compson embodies the condition of Southern aristocracy. They are completely disillusioned and they have become insensitive to the needs of their family. They have become irresponsible, and all these things has only hastened their tragic downfall. Next comes Caroline Boscombe Compson. Mrs. Caroline Compson has not shown as a proper mother in the novel. She never takes care of her children except Jason. She has no sense at all of a mother figure. She is responsible to a large extent for the downfall of her family. She becomes an abusive hypochondriac in her old age. So, Mrs. Compson has been shown as a self-centered woman who indulges in self-pity. She is utterly irresponsible, doesn't take care of her children, and finally becomes an hypochondriac in her old age. If you know the meaning of the word hypochondriac, it means that she imagines diseases and is obsessed with the idea that she is very ill. Quentin Compson, he is the eldest child of Jason and Caroline. The second part of the novel is narrated by him. He suffers from his mother's indifferent attitude and substitutes his sister's love for his mother's. He is passionate and neurotic. He commits suicide because of the influence of his father's nihilistic philosophy and his inability to cope with his sister's sexual promiscuity in her teenage. He has romantic views about purity and virginity, and that is why he cannot endure the memories of Caddy's promiscuity and the desire of marrying another man to avoid the shame of a bastard child. Now you see, in this manner, Quentin represents the values of Southern aristocracy, who believe that women should be pure, women should be innocent, and their only responsibility in life is to provide their husbands with children, to look after them and look after their husbands. So, Caddy's promiscuity hurts him so much, not only because Caddy is a sister whom he loves dearly, not only because Caddy has suffered social ostracization because of her promiscuity, but also the very fact that it violates the Southern code of conduct. Jason is the third child, who is the only character who stands beside her mother. He is very sadistic and bitter man who only thinks about money and only the single-minded person in the family. He became the guardian of the family after his father's death. In the beginning, Herbert Head had promised to give Jason a job at his bank, but rescinded that offer when he divorced Caddy because of her illegitimate affair with another man. This abjuration left Jason with no choice but to work at the farm supply store. He bitterly behaved with his sister Caddy and even did not stop in blackmailing her. Dulcie Gibson is the servant of the Compson family. She is the only selfless and kind individual in the novel. She cares for all the children in the Compson family as if they are her own children. She is the only character who supports the family all through the novel from beginning to the end. And you see, Dulcie Gibson is the only person in the novel who is capable of loving, who has human emotions and who has her heart in the right place, because all the other characters, they are deviating from what is considered to be normal behavior, but Dulcie Gibson, who is an Afro-American servant of the family, strictly conforms to the expected norms of behavior. There are several themes in the novel. The first is time, memory and the past. Faulkner deals with the concept of time, memory and past in a unique way, as if they are interwoven together. The characters are unable to forget the glorious past and move into the modern world of chaos and disorder. So, this is the central theme of the novel, time, memory and past, because it's about a southern family which is representative of so many other southern families who are frozen in time, who are continuously going back to their memories, who try to live in the past, and that's why they cannot adjust themselves to the new situation to which they found themselves after the Civil War. Decline and corruption of Southern aristocratic values. The theme of decline and corruption of Southern aristocratic values are poignantly represented through depiction of Compson family. They have lost the Southern aristocratic values of love and faith. Words and language. The story of The Sound and the Fury is not conveyed through the voice of the author through any single narrative. He has used 4 different voices, highlighting the subjectivity of each narrative in an unconventional way, as if they were unable to convey the meaning in absolute form. Faulkner himself said that he was not very sure whether, even after using 4 different narrative perspectives, he has been able to convey what he wanted to. And this is something unique in American novel, using 4 narrators, trying to give the reader 4 different perspectives, and that is how Sound and Fury is one of the masterpieces of the 20th century, because of its, not only because of the way the author has dealt with the theme, but the way author has experimented with style and structure and narrative technique. There are some symbols in the novel. Water symbolizes cleansing and purity throughout the novel, especially in relation to the character of Caddy. Watches and clocks. Quentin's watch, the watch's never-ending ticking, symbolizes the constant, relentless passage of time. Evelyn Scott opines that The Sound and the Fury is an important contribution to the literature of fiction and presents the story of the fall of a house, the collapse of a provincial aristocracy in a final debacle of insanity, recklessness, psychological perversion. Maurice Condrew views that the whole novel vibrates with sound and fury which signifies nothing. Perrin Lowry, in his essay Concepts of Time in the Sound and Fury, comments that this novel is the combination of two actions occurring in different time spans and covers 30 years of family history of Compsons in 3 days. He also talks about the arrangement of the 4 sections, disrupted time sequence, and the cyclical progression. So you see, Sound and Fury is a novel which demands meticulous reading and attention on the part of the reader, because its experimentation with the technique of novel writing, the way Faulkner chose 4 narrators, and you will also remember that not all the 4 narrators are either first person narrators or the narratives are in the stream of consciousness technique. The first 3 chapters are use stream of consciousness technique, and the 4th chapter is spoken by the narrator himself. So all kinds of experimentation goes into the narrative technique of the novel, and now you can ask why, and the answer is because Faulkner felt he was trying to talk about people, their past, their memories, their history, the way they represented a very significant period in American history, particularly the American South, that this kind of complex narrative was necessitated by the vastness and depth of the theme that he tried to deal with in the novel. Thank you.